Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing my build of the Estes Vanguard Eagle. So in the intervening time, I found the launch lug, which is great. I also glued the rest of the fins onto this thing. Right now, I think what I want to do is put fillets on these little guys. So this strengthens things. It also makes them mildly more aerodynamic. Given how small these are, it probably isn't that big of a deal, but might as well. You know, it's a quick little thing. It's easy to do. Always nice to have fillets. Anyway, so I'm just going to put a little bit of glue into each of these gaps, and then I am going to use my finger, a finger, to smooth it out. This is not particularly complicated, as mentioned. It does get a little bit of a mess spread around, so paper towel there. And I'm just going to smooth out like this. When you're doing this, it is entirely possible you will get bubbles, seams, whatever. If it doesn't look right the first time, just run your finger past it another time or two. And if it's really that bad, you can always add more glue later, or like immediately, and that should at least deal with any gaps that you might develop, and that's generally the biggest problem. Alright, so that's done. I don't want to hold this vertically because the glue will fall downhill, so we don't want that. Alright, next thing to do is we should probably put the launch lug on. So this bit here is ready to go. The launch lug goes on the launch lug line right here, and it goes all the way back at the joint, which should make this reasonably easy to do. I get some glue and just try to make as straight a line as possible. There we go. I'm not going to do 2 layers of glue on this. I generally don't with launch lugs. Fins, yes. Launch lugs, no. It just doesn't really seem to be worth it to me. I don't think I've ever lost a launch lug in flight or through the flying process. I have lost a few, but they were mainly due to rough handling. That happens. Alright, so I've got this. I'm going to try, this is a pretty long launch lug, so I'm going to try, at least on the first take, to line it up with the line. Now, I'm not going all the way back because I want to be able to see that line, because that's what I'm using for alignment purposes. And if I had it all the way, all the way to the edge, I wouldn't be able to see it. So I can see just a little bit. That actually looks pretty good. Looking down the barrel here to make sure that it is pretty straight. It looks, looking down like that, it does look pretty straight, and as important as anything else, it is fitting in between the gap between the fin and the booster pod there. That, of course, would be quite important, because if it lined up with either the fin or the pod, you couldn't get the launch rod on this, and you would have a maybe nice looking rocket, but one that you couldn't fly. Alright, so that is taken care of. The last little bit of construction that really needs to be done is I need to attach these two parts together. And in order to do that, I need this piece right here. This piece is going to end up, let's just move things around a little bit. This piece is going to go in here. And what I'm going to do is I want to line up, there's a seam in this from the construction. I want to line this seam up with one of my fins. This, I think I can get away with crazy glue here, CA glue, because this is not a particularly snug fit at the moment. So I feel somewhat confident in not using the not using plastic cement for this. Ooh, that's some interesting build-up here. Yeah, well, it's like a, there we kind of like crystal formation. Alright, again, CA glue, glues almost instantaneously. You get a little bit of time to mess with it after you apply the two surfaces, but I generally like working with this rather than the plastic cement when it is reasonable to do so. Alright, again, I want this seam to line up directly, so I'm going to, before I even put it in, I'm going to eyeball it, make sure it's pretty straight. In it goes. That looks pretty good. And this stuff, like I said, it sets awfully quickly, so that's probably set, like right now. Okay? Now, the other end of this, and remember, I don't want to leave it like this long term because those fillets are still wet. The other end of this is going to, of course, attach in here, and I want my seam again to line up with, not that one, that's the launch lug, this one right here, the fin line, because this fin and this fin ought to be lined up. And if I did this correctly, this line should do that. This again is a pretty loose fit, so I feel pretty confident in using CA glue for this as well. I just want to make sure I don't do anything stupid like bump the launch lug here. So, again, be a little careful about this. And paint some CA glue on the inside here. And this part, the worst thing you could do here would be to accidentally line up the fin, this fin, with this launch lug, so we really don't want to do that. Again, I'm going to eyeball my line here, and there it goes. Quickly, I'm going to look at these before my glue sets to make sure that they're lined up. They should be. And yeah, they look pretty good. My line, actually, in looking at it, was not quite perfect. I'm much more concerned about looking down the barrel and seeing that the fins are in alignment with each other more than checking that line. I, of course, want to make sure that I can see, straight down, and this fin isn't lining up with the launch lug, which seems to be the case. Is now not the case. I can see fine. So that's kind of it. That's a construction phase. Yeah, I mean, there's like nothing else to do right now. That's very exciting. So I'm just going to prop that up a little bit so this is relatively flat, and it's time for stuff to dry. The only other things that need to be done construction wise are attaching the shock cord, but I'm not going to do that until after I paint things. Now, typically at this point, I would begin the process of doing wood fill and sanding sealer and all that on the wood fins. But the wood fins in this case are the tiniest little things in the world, and honestly, I don't really see the point. So I don't think I'm going to do those phases. What I do want to be more careful about, though, because of how much plastic is in this, is when I do my next step is going to be priming it, I guess. I'm not going to just hit it with the regular primer first. I do have a plastic primer. I will probably use that somewhat sparingly, at least down on this part, and this part, and the nose cone. If for no other reason than the plastic, this plastic is very smooth. It's I'm not entirely sure what kind of plastic it is. Doesn't matter all that much, but I'm concerned that my spray paint won't adhere particularly well to this, and that's why they make plastic primer, primer for plastic pieces. So I will probably use that first. Then I'll hit the whole thing with flat white primer. There's not much to sand. I mean, I could sand the fins, but that's probably not really going to accomplish much, which is, again, it's fine. It's not a particularly big deal. But yeah, I'm actually skipping quite a few steps because of the amount of plastic in this, and that is fine with me. That does not upset me in the least. I'm going to put the nose cone in here for a little bit because, or at least while everything dries here, because the nose cone, or not the cone, but the tube is a bit warped. I'd like to try to push that back into shape, and having the nose cone in probably will help matters. Probably won't hurt them anyway. The only other thing I can think to do, I'm going to do it off camera because it's not worth watching, is I'm going to put a fillet on that once it dries, which it isn't dry right now, so I'm not going to do that. Yeah, so pretty exciting. Sounds good. I will then get to painting, I guess. How exciting. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.